Hi, good morning and good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are joining us in today. Thank you very much for joining in. My name is Lorelei Rue, and I'm a senior managing consultant in the CTO office for IBM Cloud Infrastructure as a Solutions. And today we're going to start a mini series of focus on the VMware Solutions shared platform that's available on IBM Cloud today. And we're going to be starting today and covering over the next 3 days via Twitch, and we will have this available for restream later. So basically, the VMware Solutions shared from an overview perspective, it's a method to provide a standardized and customizable deployment choices for VMware virtual data center environments, okay? So with VMware Solutions Shared virtual data centers, you can quickly and seamlessly migrate or deploy VMware workloads to the cloud on IBM hosted VMware infrastructure, and IBM provides a self-service on-demand VMware cloud computing platform, and that's leveraging VMware vCloud Director, and that's all running on IBM Cloud infrastructure. This infrastructure as a service on-demand offering provides the option to use specific virtual CPU, storage, virtual memory, networking, and IP allocation and attachment as required per the solution. We have a couple of different subscription model types that we'll get into, and what we're going to focus on today is really kind of jumping in, getting our hands on the keyboard. We'll be going through the ordering process of a VMware Shared Solutions environment. We'll be covering the considerations for such. We'll be looking at the order page and actually going through those options. We'll talk about what happens behind the scenes as part of the automation that IBM Cloud has built to deploy these effective solutions quickly and efficiently. And then, depending on our time today, we'll get into the actual, once the environment is provisioned and in the cloud, how that you can actually start accessing and using resources, creating virtual machines, etc., creating network endpoints, and those type things. So without further ado, I want to bring in the other guest today that's going to be joining me. First, I'd like to introduce JJ Ashgar. He's the developer advocate for IBM. Thank you for joining us. And also JJ is working behind the scenes doing all the production work for this Twitch stream. So thank you very much, JJ. JJ is also going to be our resident hands-on keyboard. So we'll be using the environment that he's spun up to demonstrate and walk through things. Next, we have Brian Buckland. Brian Buckland is CTO of IBM Cloud Infrastructure as a Solutions, the CTO office, and we cover a lot of things. Basically, we're the gel point between requirements that come in from the clients, how we actually architect those solutions from a large perspective at a global paradigm. And then we work with sales to enable them on those solutions. And then we work with the various delivery teams and business partners to ensure that those solutions are carried out effectively, and that we handle any of the feedback coming back in. So Brian, man of many hats, joining in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And finally, last but certainly not least, we have Sam Cooper. Sam is the manager for the engineering team for all of VMware Solutions Shared. So we were able to pull him away from that for just a short period of time over those next few days to try to pick his mind. For those that are watching on the stream, if you have questions or comments, or if you need us to pause to look at something else, we can do that. This is a free-form discussion. It's primarily for the purpose of answering your questions. Sam, thank you for joining.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Right into basically, so I want to ask you, Sam, right off the get-go, right? We've are familiar, we have a VMware, we give root access to the customer. It's a traditional VMware environment. We call that VCS. Now, why, or what are the main differentiating points between VMware Solutions Shared, and why would a customer be even interested in going into this route from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great opening question. The key difference is really who has responsibility for managing the hypervisors. Who needs to ensure that they're on, that they're patched. Security compliance is buttoned down, and so VMware Shared leverages Director to really accomplish explicitly that.
So from an expectation as a customer, I don't have root access with VMware Shared. I don't have VM, but how is that sure that stuff's taken care of, or like where does kind of IBM's management responsibilities of the VMware stack begin, and what is my expectations from a customer perspective?
Right. So everything regarding the hypervisor, the ESXi host, is our responsibility. IBM handles that for the customer, and then also it pushes one layer up in that the customer doesn't actually get into vCenter to manage things at that level of granularity. And that's really where VMware Director comes in. This offering is written explicitly to allow the abstraction of the resources that vCenter provides, and so really it's Director itself which tends to set the boundaries there for what the customer can and cannot do with regards to virtualized networking and with vApps and VMs themselves.
Yeah, and that's just to kind of like back up a little bit, right? So from a VMware vCloud Director perspective, really, then what we're doing is presenting what we'll call a virtual data center, right? So would that would look basically as an organization that's separate, right, for a customer to consume and work with their virtual machines with inside. Do they have the ability to have like provisioning and cataloging of their own, and like are they from a user provisioning perspective, or from a virtual machine perspective for provisioning, all like flexible options that the customer has?
Yeah, I would say so. You're just limited by whatever is available in the UI and the API. Um, I mean, out of the box, we have Windows Server templates that are available. Um, we have Red Hat VMs that are available, so that's what customers tend to reach for first when they're setting up infrastructure. At the same time, you can spin up whatever sort of VM you want. They all get kind of wrapped up into this vApp abstraction, which is just like a set of VMs that are targeted towards one specific use case. I don't know. Were there any other, I guess, details you were looking for, or aspects of it you wanted to, I guess, tease out in terms of options?
I think one of the main things
Yeah,
here is that
I guess I think probably we can.
So I was just going to say, like, one of the main things here is that we are managing up to the hypervisor level. We're providing support and maintenance of that environment. We're doing monitoring of the environment. We patch all the different various software products. So we have Veeam, we have Zerto, we have vCloud Director. So all that is, the customer no longer needs to manage that anymore. So, the customers can come in to the vCloud Director interface, and then from there they can manage their applications, and they've got ability to create and define their networking. So, it's easing the administration for our end users.
Okay, great. Let's dive right into it. So, if we can, JJ, if you'd be so kind to let's actually open up the order screen.
Yep,
And
1
let's go
second.
through that because I think that's going to give us.
Is this the right one?
Thank you kindly, Sam. If I would, so yeah, IAF page, and we go to VM right there.
Is
So,
this big enough? Do I need to make it bigger?
Sam, could
Can you
you
see it?
walk us through this? Yeah, I can see it. So let's talk about these different options. If we're in here, we have our account, we have our customer account ready, and we're actually ready to deploy an environment that's leveraging VMware Solutions Shared, which is again powered by VMware vCloud Director. So Sam, could you walk us through kind of like what our options are here and what considerations we should think about as we go through?
Sure. So of course, what's jumping up there out there at the top is the pricing plan. So we have two options here: on demand and reserved. And so the choice here is really about guarantees, and the pricing varies along with that guarantee. So for reserved, um, when you choose that, you are going to pay more, but then you have the guarantee that the CPU and the RAM and the storage that are required to run that virtual machine are always allocated for you, and you can spin up whenever you want. Um, Whereas on demand, it's more of an oversubscription model. So it gives us the ability to keep an eye on things, and we will spin up your VM as resources are allowed. Now, generally, it's we want it so that our customers can always spin up their VMs, but there is just a caveat with this that there could be a time when that VM won't spin up, but it does give the customer the ability to set up their VMs and then to power them off so they're not using any CPU or RAM, and then they won't have to pay for that. So they'll just be billed hourly for usage of those VMs within an on-demand pricing plan. They will have to keep paying for storage, but it does give a nice price break to the customer. So for a DR type use case, we find a lot of customers like this plan.
So just as a clarification, the on-demand, so the customer can have VMware or virtual machines provisioned but not turned on, and then when they're ready to turn them on, then that's when the billing starts. Versus reserved, they're always being charged that amount, but that's also a guarantee that those resources are going to be available at the moment that they turn it on. Is that?
It's essentially correct. The only detail I'd add in there is that you do have to, if in the on-demand space, you do have to, while you set them up, you'll be paying for vCPU, RAM, and storage. And then when you power them down, you will continue to pay storage costs on them, but the vCPU and RAM, you won't. Those will just be billed at an hourly basis.
Gotcha. Awesome. So what's next here? Virtual data center name, resource group. What are those?
So name is really, could be arbitrary. Probably put your company name or project effort. Really whatever you like.
Oh, hang on. I actually got a question there.
Okay.
So you touched on something that probably every company has to deal with at some point, which is, do you create an instance for your whole company or project? Like, where is the line where you should use this solution?
Yeah, it's a good question. You can have multiple virtual data centers per organization. So I think it's almost like, when you're making up an org tree, how many individual sub organizations do you want? So it's very much
Nice.
customizable by I think whomever is making the decisions about the VDC structure. If you can contain everything in one virtual data center, then that might be the way to go. But
Yeah, you may
yeah,
want to even just break that up logically. Have your dev test and your production as different VDC instances. So
Nice.
if you want to spin up your dev test hourly and power it off overnight, then that's available to you.
Oh yeah, that'd be great savings over the time. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Where
Nice.
does that name actually, like, where does that actually end up? Like, where does that nomenclature end up in the long run? Or is it like, is this, once I put this name in, is it forever? And is it like, does it show up, like, where would I see this in my day-to-day operations, like just as a display name, or is it actually part of like a FQDN, or
Mm.
what do you think, Sam?
as far as I know, it'll just be in, we call it the portal UI. So the IBM Cloud UI here. You'll be able to see each virtual data center, and as part of um, as part of the objects that are visible to you in the UI, it'll be displayed. So you'll want to name it something that'll allow you to differentiate from your other VDCs. And then on the director side, there's actually a logical object there also. So it'll probably be in the banner or something. I'm not aware of any FQDNs that are generated that this would go into.
Okay, great, thanks. And what's resource group all about?
So resource group is it's kind of an abstraction within the IBM Cloud that allows management of, it's basically like access control and enablement from the cloud perspective. So um, really, this is just saying, hey, put this virtual DC in this resource group, because then it'll line up with your authorization approach, basically your permissions approach that you're using within the IBM Cloud.
Okay, so if I had existing resource groups and I wanted to share, I wanted to have, I wanted to set up so I had access to those other resources in the resource group, basically, right? If I didn't do that and I just like blew by this and did default, like, how is there a lot of effort to redo that later, or is it like one of these things where I have to kind of like deploy a new instance? Do I have to really make sure that this is right at the beginning, or can I just say default and be okay and then deal with that later? Or what do you think, or what experiences have you seen coming in from the field?
I don't know if you can change this after the fact or not. Well, I feel pretty strongly you can change it, but I'm not sure if it's immediately accessible to the customer. It may be a support case to actually kind of move it from one group to another.
The little
Brian, did you?
info icon. Yeah, I was going to say the little info icon saying that this selection cannot be changed after the fact.
Perfect.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and then to learn more, I guess we would go follow that to find out, to make sure that we actually put it in the right resource group. Okay, cool. Let's go right on to the next thing here.
Okay. So in terms of topology, one nice thing about VMware is its support for, I guess you'd almost call it like storage durability. The ability to have a backing storage that can support virtual machines that can run in one of two data centers. So from a DR perspective, that's what's going to drive your consideration here. So by default, with a single zone setup, that virtual machine is only going to live in one data center, in one storage cluster, and naturally with the other one, it's going to be deployed. Well, not deployed, but you're going to have redundancy of that data on the backing vSAN. So that'll allow your VM instance to really float in terms of where is it available. So if we were and because we accommodate the MZR, the multi-zone region approach with IBM Cloud, this features basically kind of, the whole reason we can do this is because we're accommodating that approach. And so, yep. So if you choose multi-zone, then that VM is just going to be durable during a DR event that could be impacting one of the data centers.
How does that impact the pricing associated with it?
I believe we just double the storage.
Okay.
I don't know don't hold me to that, but I think that's approximately the.
Looks like maybe 1.5.
Okay,
And
so a little value
it
add
also,
there.
yeah, it gives
Alexa.
you 10 public IP addresses compared to the 5 original also. FYI.
So one thing I noticed when you clicked over to multi-zone, the data center location, it just one of them removed. So single zone we have available where now? If we click on single zone, we have what? Dallas and Frankfurt. Okay. So what, multi-zone's available in Dallas today, Sam?
Correct.
And then what is our, is that going to be moved out into other geos or data center locations in the
Yeah.
future?
Yep. I mean, it's we definitely want to get it out in Frankfurt and any other geos that we might have. So I think it's just TBD when that actually shows up.
That's part of our future roadmap. So
Awesome. All right.
One thing that
Networking. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I would just to call out, it's not super intuitive, but if you click on the drop downs under the data center location, then you do get the specific data centers there. So
Yeah.
So how does that? Yeah, how does that look?
Multi-zone, spreads across DAL 10 and DAL 12. Is that correct? Not DAL
Correct.
13.
Yes. So for the multi-zone 10, and in the case of Dallas, DAL 10 and DAL 12 would be both kind of legs of that multi-zone.
Okay.
So just
So
to highlight there on this single zone, I was going to say the single zone, you have the 3 data centers. So you can set up a single zone in each of those 3 zones, and then you could set up, your application HA. So if you wanted to, if your application level HA, you could have that redundancy between the 3 data centers as well.
Nice.
Yeah, and not leverage, like if you weren't going to leverage vSAN, stretch vSAN or something, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if your application has that capability to do, application HA, then you can save yourself some of those costs of not having to implement stretched vSAN and other components that way.
Yeah, good tip for sure. So when we deployed a single zone, that's what we'll be demonstrating here in this series, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll be showing that. So let's act as if we were deploying that single zone, Dallas, networking, public and private, or private only. What's our differences here, Sam?
So the whenever you order a virtual data center or a VDC, we provision an edge gateway in that network space. And so this is really an indication of which interfaces and IP addresses get provisioned to that edge. If you do want public ingress egress, then we're gonna add the IPs to make that happen. And same thing. If it's private only, then no public IPs will be there.
But regardless, it's all the edge gateway is going to be there with either a public leg or not, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. And let's keep going. VDC or virtual data center capacity. Here's our CPU limit and RAM limit. So how does if I'm looking to build me out an environment, how do I go about doing that, Sam? What am I looking at?
Well, I mean, it's really best guess for what you want the capacity of this VDC to be. It's really this has more implications if you're ordering a reserved instance versus an on-demand instance. So with reserved, this is what you're going to be paying for every month. Whereas with the on-demand, of course, these are just billed at an hourly basis. So, but other than that, it's it's really just trying to pick a number that works for you.
So can I carve out max, and if I don't use it, and if I'm on just on-demand pricing, I can carve out max, but like, what does that mean though, for real?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not aware of any repercussions of carving out max. So talking about in an on-demand approach.
Other than that, it's not guaranteed.
Right.
Right, which is a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but for those purposes, I think like you had mentioned, or even dev test scenarios, or some DR scenarios, I think that would be more than enough. Cool. All right, and then we have some recommended services here to add on. Let's see, we have Veeam and Zerto, backup and disaster recovery. So how does these just deploy into the virtual data center, and then it's up to the customer to kind of like do what configuration they want based on their enterprise policies and etc.?
Essentially, yeah. So these vendors have offerings that work well with Director. Director has VMware is really trying to create an ecosystem so that the managed service provider, IBM in this case, us, we can assemble something that is going to allow the customer to bring the type of enterprise workloads that that they generally have and that they want to have run in the cloud. And so the so we've already set up the capability in terms of the director management infrastructure. And so from the customer's perspective, it's just whether they want to take advantage of that or not. And so the Veeam suite there's the primary one I would say is the customer backup case. So if you go after that Veeam availability suite, then you will have it's a Veeam self-service portal. So with this offering, you're going to have access to the Director, which is its own self-service portal. But so this would be a portal in addition to that. So it's a web UI that you can get into. You're gonna see the VMs that are running in Director, and you can choose to set up backup jobs for them. You can set the retention policy, um, all of that. And then the next Veeam one is Veeam Cloud Connect, and so that's going after the replication scenario. So it really doesn't support backing up data into local storage. It's really just allowing a customer to replicate data. Typically this would be on-prem, or it would be in a different software account, and just replicate it into the director space. And then the other offering there, Zerto, is similar to Cloud Connect. It's another replication offering that a lot of enterprises they like and use actually. So that's why we have a couple options there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Cloud Connect and Zerto, it's real. They have the ability to do our DR use case, where customers can use this as a DR location, or if they want to actually move from their on-premise and lift and shift into the cloud environment. So these are two migration technologies that we have available.
Yeah,
Nice.
great point, Brian.
Yeah, so for migration of on-prem workloads into the shared environment, I would look at Cloud Connect or Zerto for that purpose, or two of the options, right, available for that for migration.
There's two options for the migration.
Yeah.
Correct.
Now, what about when like you said, the other Veeam portal that we're managing our jobs in and stuff like that? Do then does Zerto have a similar interface for managing like your DR events and your DR plan and things like that?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, cool. Just another admin web interface. Go in, I pick my jobs, standard stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, let's jump into it. So these are the only questions. This is it. This is all I need to know to deploy. This is it. It was like 5 questions.
Yeah.
The 5 questions.
And then I go and I'm on the right side. I got my price here. I hit go. It goes deploys this. What happens on the back end, Sam? Like, in a nutshell.
Sure. So we track capacity usage of our customers in the environment, so that there's room for new orders as they come in. And so this action is really a logical one. So it's it's fairly quick in terms of providing the customer with immediate access to the environment. Um, the It can take a little bit to get the kind of accessory services provisioned, like Zerto and Veeam. So there is a slight delay. I think 20 minutes is kind of a ballpark there. But in general, you can get spun up fairly quickly and get in there and start using your virtual data center.
What would be like, so if I go and kick this off, and when should I be concerned that it's not work, like, after an hour and I don't see my email or my response in my portal that the environment's been provisioned? Or is it 3 or 4 hours, or should I wait a day, or what should I generally have in my gut to wait
Sure.
for?
Good question. I think an hour is a good figure there. If you haven't seen anything in an hour, for sure, give our support a call. Although we do watch these things come through, and if something unexpected were to happen, we're going to be on top of it. So
Yeah, because we're taking advantage of like the whole DevOps cycle, right? Because we're doing these in addition to scripting. There's a team of folks that are actually doing these things and watching these things, right? So that's awesome. All right, so let's say we made our decisions. We made our little options. We hit deploy. We go and grab lunch. We come back. Here's our instance. This is what it looks like. Let's walk around. Let's see what we got going on. What do we got? Starting right at the top. Here's our name. That's our name that we picked when we deployed this, right? That was the name that that's our display name. All right. On demand. Yeah, is there anything specifically that we want to call out here that's...
Sure. I mean, most of this stuff lines up with the choices that were made by the customer. So, I mean, public IPs, do end up there. So that'll be useful. Useful for the customer. And then you'll notice there's a Red Hat activation key. So in order to activate any Red Hat VMs that we're spinning up, you'll want to use this key. This information.
I will say, sorry, I got to
ahead.
jump in and say, I will be deleting this as soon as the streams are over. So if you're trying to steal this to charge your it will no longer exist as soon as this is over. So don't even bother.
So I have a question. The public IPs that are assigned up there, what are those? What are those going to? What are they? Are they just allocated, or what are they for?
They are allocated they're just kind of sitting there waiting to be used.
Okay.
In that sense, they're really not assigned to anything at that point.
Okay, and it's 5 for a single instance.
Yep, 5 is the default, and we do support more though. So if your workflows do need more, we can open a support case, and we'd be happy to get some more to you.
Okay. Excellent. Let's see, do we have anything up on the top right of the screen once it's deployed here? Resource
Yes, reservations.
And is that editable after we do it? It sure is.
Yeah.
Cool. But that doesn't really affect anything. You said, Sam.
Well, because of the on demand.
But yeah, unless we're on demand, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. So, okay, we have our environment. We think that it's there. What does it look like right away? How do we access it right away before we do anything? What does it look like?
In the screen that you were just on before you flashed to this, in the upper right hand corner, there's that vCloud Director button / link.
Okay.
So that's going to take you to the vCloud Director UI that's basically running within our interface, and so it'll be your management or area of management really for this this virtual data center that's been spun up.
And this is on the public internet.
Can I throw 2 cents in real fast?
Mhm.
I have learned as a user that, as you notice, I use Safari as my main work browser. This vCloud Director does not like Safari at all. So as you see, I moved over to Chrome here.
Yeah.
So, FYI.
Okay.
But this is internet.
Correct.
I don't need a
Yep.
I don't need a VPN to get into here.
Correct.
Not for the management. Correct.
Okay.
Oh, I
So-
have something running.
Wow. What is all this? What are we looking at, Sam?
So this is really a dashboard approach. So as you add in the apps and VMs, that they'll be displayed here. Of course, right now just one, so not a lot to look at. It's definitely geared towards resource utilization. You can see those, I don't know what you call them, flow meters or whatever, for CPU and memory. I'm not sure. Yeah, so it gets more interesting when you actually look at the on the left here, the things you can do.
So virtual machines, is that where I go to create a virtual machine?
Yeah, there's that new VM.
New VM. Let's rip through one.
Okay.
Computer name. That's our host name.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay. All right. So let's see. New from template. Okay. Let's see. New is what? We have to point it to an ISO or something like that to like load an image.
I don't know. Actually, click on it and.
Or does it give us what's the OS family?
It looks like we need to upload the ISO
Okay,
to
nice.
the network.
What's the OS?
And then we can
drop the OS family down there first. See if it pops any up. There should be in the catalog by default, right? I would think. No?
That's the template. So the template would give you different images.
Oh, depending on what's available.
So like this, I think is, you would have to upload your custom ISO up into vCloud Director, and then that would be available for you to create a new virtual machine against.
Ooh, OpenShift.
Versus we have some pre-built templates available.
All right. So, but out of the box, quite a bit. What do we need to deploy? Something easy. CentOS box or Red Hat box or something like that.
CentOS 8. Reasonable.
It's a little guy. Just want to show the.
You don't want to spin up OpenShift real fast? Call it a day.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let's do it.
No. That's a couple hours right there. There we go.
Just like we could time.
There you go.
All right. Yep. So anyone that's familiar with creating a verb in their entire life, this should be very, very basic stuff, right? It looks pretty simple. But what do they look like right out of the gate here while we let this VM build? If we go around to networking and networks and we see our stuff, what do we look at? What do we see? So what's networks by default? What about edges?
So you'll have the
So
edge, which will
So that's our
provide your
edge. Sam,
north-south,
can you walk?
your public connectivity. That's edge, and there's firewall capabilities within that edge as well, so you can protect your environment.
I'm gonna click into
What
it.
about east-west?
Yeah. East-west also protected. So when you define your networking, you can also get east-west
South.
firewall rules.
So all right. So let's talk about
Okay,
north-south. This is out of the box by default. Our new environment.
Nope. All right. Looks like our machine's up.
Let's see. There. VM made it. Okay. Let's look at
Go
this
back to the general
networks
networking.
here while we're here.
Okay.
Right here is fine. I just see what's available to show. Like, so when a customer deploys this is the gap right off the bat, right? And this is part of freaking that Sam was talking about earlier of the edge that's deployed in the instance, right? And this gives traffic in and out of the environment, right? So is there anything specific that we should be looking at here?
I was just going to highlight the service, that top one, the service 01. So this is providing an ability for the different, org VDCs. They can then access some of the IBM internal services. So things like NTP, DNS. So we're not going to be stepping, we've set that up in a way where it doesn't conflict with any of the IP spaces that you use. And, we set up the routing so that, from your organization, you can then utilize some of the other IBM cloud services.
Something like cloud storage or things like that. Like if you have different things, hence the resource group is so important, right? When we were alluding to that earlier, if you add it to a resource group that has access to another project or offering inside of IBM Cloud, now you can leverage the cloudy stuff on there, and then have, like, for instance, your compute inside of the inside of your VDC, right? VS STDC.
DC.
I don't know. Anyway, there we go. That's
Yeah,
what I'm looking for.
it's more the shared services. So customers will normally connect this edge up via like an IPsec tunnel. So either over public or over private, they would then connect their IPsec tunnel back to either on premise or into another IBM Cloud account. And then that's how you can have IBM Cloud with their services, and then that provides a seamless network connectivity between the two.
Nice.
And then our other network here, subnet 150. That's our public IP space.
That's the public IP space, correct?
Okay, all right. Now let's say that I wanted to set up some other networks inside of my environment. Where would I begin to do that? Would I create a?
I think you got to create a new network. I'm just.
Am I basically so here's my question, right? Like if I'm used to a VMware environment where I can go in and create my networks and I'm backing them with like a port group, for instance, right? How does that look like in this construct, so that when I plug my network in or my VM to my network and then I'm plugging into the edge, that's all I'm doing, and then everything else is going through the edge? Or
correct? Yeah.
How do I get east-west traffic, or how do I do segregation, or is there ability to do like micro-segmentation between east-west traffic between the workloads that are inside my VDC?
So Sam, do you know where we go for networking to create like the different, like I think we've got the routed networks components?
So in the edge itself, I know there's like you're talking about microsegmentation. that's where the firewall considerations are, and I believe you can monkey around with the routes too there.
Yeah, like let's say for instance, I had a VM in a private network 10.110 and I had another VM in 10.120, but I wanted those completely separated east-west traffic between the two segments, and I only wanted certain ports, and I wanted that firewalling capability that's provided through VDC for
Click on
that
that.
east to
Oh, sorry,
west.
Lorelai.
No,
Click
no,
on that
no.
services tab. Actually, there's
Yeah. I was just trying to color what I was trying to achieve.
right. Okay, so there's a lot in here. You can see DHCPT, DHCP, NAT, routing. So this is where you can really start having fun with your edge for better or for worse.
And I'm privileged to all these features as part of consuming this.
Correct.
Okay. So I can set up my own SSL VPN that I can give to my users to go directly into my environment, so they land directly into my network that's inside my VDC.
Correct.
That's awesome. That's a really, really big deal.
So in terms of that, I don't know if SSL VPN is supported. We tend to work more with, I guess,
IPsec.
IPsec VNs. That's what we usually see coming in.
For like connecting to another actual device, right? Or yeah. Well, I'm wondering, like, because SSL VPN. I mean, I know it's part of EDC, right? But if the licensing subscription model supports that, which is like probably the enterprise NSX, so I don't know how that converts, but that's really good for folks that want to like give maybe just a development space just for a certain team, right?
Mm-hmm.
That may not be part of another larger organization or something like that, to keep it completely separate, and then they can just dump in, have their own little user accounts for VPN access into that environment, etc. So useful tool for sure, and it works relatively good.
You know what? We have IPsec VPN and L2 VPN. Do you know much about that? The aspect of that one, Brian? Like, how is that different than IPsec?
So your IPsec is going to be your phase 1, phase 2 IKE, right? So you have a pre-shared key on both sides, and then once that handshake is established, then you create and then present the routes back and forth. L2 VPN, you're actually connecting to other L2 VPN concentrator, which would be like, for instance, another NSX environment on-prem, and then you can do an L2 extension stretch directly MAC layer only into. But it's this I know isn't as, so there's a lot of limitations from this, and this is the product, the networking construct within VCD, right? There's some limitations regarding bandwidth and throughput, maximum connections, etc., like that. For large scale, like say for instance, there was a migration effort of like 1,000 VMs and none of the IPs could be changed or something, then we'd have to look at something else, right? But if this is a on-prem location with NSX or a cloud location with NSX, and we wanted to do an L2 VPN extension, we could, to allow for just layer 2 communication between the two segments. It's almost like a bridge connection, right? It's not a real true like VPN per se. It's because it's encapsulated and such, but it's not the same functionality as what you get over SSL VPN or even IPsec tunnel. So
okay, that makes sense.
That's my take on it. So okay, cool. So this is really good, because even within the fact that the VMware layer and all the infrastructure, hardware components, storage, etc., is managed completely by IBM. So the customer can focus on the workloads themselves and in the construct of their organizational virtual data center, which is awesome. Not only that, but they do have the ability to do really advanced networking capability techniques within that construct. So what is there a need for root access to ESX if all of these things are provided for, right? So
Exactly.
So that's really, really cool. We've got about 5 to 10 minutes. Is there what I would like to maybe talk about, if we could, is start on the actual, if we wanted to provision oh, now the word
Computer.
just no, not the VM. The back to the portal page. We were underneath, not this one, but the actual ordering portal. Yeah, underneath this. What was that top thing there in the middle? Keep going. Keep scrolling up. That one, private network endpoint. That's the word. That's the word I was looking for. So what is this about, Sam?
I could take this one, although Brian, you actually might be able to speak towards it better if you want to go after it.
Sure. Private network endpoint is providing, we're running vCloud Director as a service, so it's underneath an IBM controlled account. And private network endpoint is a method for communication between two IBM Cloud accounts. So, you can have account A and account B. This is a IBM function that allows us to communicate over the private backbone of IBM Cloud. So, for customers who are coming in normally into IBM Cloud via a direct link, they want that private connectivity. They don't want the public access points. And then from their account to get into the IBM, VMware shared account, we have a private network endpoint. So it's a communication mechanism, and we normally would establish our IPsec tunnels from, the account A into the VMware shared account. And then that's the way that customers can have that seamless network between both accounts.
So if this was my first dip into IBM Cloud, there probably wouldn't be a requirement for me to have a private network endpoint, or would there?
Only if you, back when you're on the ordering page, if you selected private only, then you would need to get a private network endpoint to establish that communication. So the portal, or this user interface that we were previously on, that's always available over public network. So it's ease of management. But then for your workload or your virtual machines, then in order to communicate with those, you would need to establish the private network endpoints.
Okay, so let me play this back. If I'm picking private only, so I don't have any public access. Obviously, I can't connect to the administrative portal over the internet. So that means I need a private network endpoint. How do I get to wherever I need to be to connect to that private network endpoint to get to this instance? Do I use some other VPN, or what does that private network endpoint then thusly connect me to?
So so normally you would stand up like a firewall or something that can establish that IPsec within your account. So by clicking on this private network endpoint, we'll provide you the shared key and an IP address. And normally it's in the 161 range, and that's what you would connect your IPsec tunnel to. So from your account A, you'd go to the 161 address. And behind the scenes, we're translating that 161 address into your edge services gateway, which we have running on the IBM Cloud 10. network. So, the IPsec would, go via 161, it gets translated into a 10. address. And then, that lands on your edge gateway, which is the access point for a customer. And then that way, once you're on that edge gateway, then they're accessing all the different networks and that you're defining within your virtual data center.
And that's through the direct link MPLS or whatever.
Correct.
From on-prem location. So
yeah,
when
so on-prem can get end to end.
Let's just for sake of demonstration, if we click on create a private network endpoint here, does this actually go through the process to kick me to deploy direct link as well, or do I have to do that in parallel, separately?
Separately. So this is just purely creating the private network endpoint, IP address details. You have the different options here, which is a multi-tenanted one, or you can have a dedicated connection, which is 1 gig or 10 gig, and then we can associate subnets. So we can restrict this down to just the networks that you want to be exposed to allow this communication to go across.
Okay.
So if you don't want to have it open to everybody, like you might say, okay, I'm only going to access this from the IPsec tunnel from my side.
Gotcha. So, all right. So let's say like maybe I'm a financial institution or something like that, right? I don't want to have public access to my environment. As a general, method of operation in my steps, I would deploy, or I would start the process for direct link, getting that MPLS connection set up between my private or my on-prem data center location, and then thusly my cloud link. And then I would deploy this environment. Then I would secondly pick up the private network endpoint to then be able to bridge between my network and the cloud through that direct link.
Correct.
Great. Okay, cool. Awesome. Is there any other reason that I would need this?
No, it's purely for the private connectivity.
Okay.
I like the logo. The logo's pretty cool looking.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Sort of cool. But we'll talk about that later. Okay, cool. I think this is like a good stopping point. What we'll do tomorrow is we'll come back in, we'll take a look at the VM that we created. We'll play a little bit more within the construct, because I'd really like to spend some time just demonstrating, just basic walk around, like how do we get to things and stuff. And then we can start talking about, setting up protections and things like that, and any other things that come to mind. Is there any closing statements from y'all before we break out?
Just as always, go to the cloud, ibm.com/docs/VMware Solutions, and you can find all our product documentation there as well if you want to read deeper into it.
Excellent. Well, from all of us, thanks to you for joining. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
All right.